I'm Gwendolyn Lindsay Cooley, the founder of Taimet, and I am excited to share Taimet with you today. Taimet analyzes mergers for antitrust risk using artificial intelligence. It first generates a report about the markets and other antitrust concerns, and then analyzes those markets to see whether there are overlaps that would create antitrust risk, and generates a score on how likely it is that that merger will be challenged in court. So let's take a look. So this is the Taimet dashboard. Really, there's two choices here. You can run a new analysis or view analyses. Your new analysis is not going to have you upload any information. It's just inputting the company names. And then there's a validation for each company name to make sure you're really getting the correct one that you want. If you look at your existing analyses, you can see we've got a bunch of them here. Some of them are enticing to look at, I'm sure. But I think it's worthwhile to look at, for example, Compass Anywhere. So here's the Compass Anywhere transaction. You can see here it scores a 69. But what's interesting about the score is actually what goes into it. You can see here we've got some insight into the company itself, its stock exchange listings, the SEC filings, leadership team. That's useful when you're trying to put together your witness list if you are an enforcer. You've got a transaction summary and an analysis summary, which are very similar to the types of high-level overview I would give my attorneys general over the years in my 20 years of service to the state of Wisconsin. But let's look at some parts of this that I think you will find the most useful. You want to know a little bit more about the transaction type. This one obviously is a horizontal transaction. The geographic overlap. There's both a national market and a smaller market, a smaller local market, and let's look at that. So this is what it will look like when you're looking at a Taimet analysis, right? It's showing here some national market overlaps for residential brokerage franchising, but also these smaller local market overlaps. This is what it looks like when you're seeing an estimated market share. Here, this one's got key competitors here of Compass, Sotheby's, Coldwell Banker. You can see that the Compass market share analysis, 39.6%, it's got high confidence. That's based on the number of sources it can pull this information from. You can see also there's some that have medium confidence and some that have low confidence. Obviously, those are not having as much information that's publicly available. But so you have a pretty good insight into the market when you look at this transaction. Those of you who are more familiar with this transaction will know that there are a lot of markets, and the way that Taimet is looking at this is it's pulling out the markets that it thinks are the most relevant, but there are other markets that it flags here as well. So it's noting there's 5 additional metropolitan residential brokerage markets that are impacted that it doesn't have pulled out in its analysis, but it does note that those would also trigger the presumption. If you look at the merger guidelines analysis here, it notes that it triggers the structural presumption, which is guideline 1. It's got guideline 3, increased risk of coordination, entrenchment of dominant position, and you can see there's quite a few merger guidelines that are flagged here. But then let's go back all the way up to the analysis and that ultimate score. So you can see here, this one is scoring a 69, possible second request. You can see that there's a range. Green means go, right? 1 through 25 is a candidate for early termination. Then that next band, the 26 through 50, possible pull and refile. That could just mean that there's a little bit more investigation of the transaction, but those will ultimately be cleared. The vast majority of transactions will fall in this less than 50 band, between 0 and 50. The second request band, 51 through 70, a little bit higher. You can see this one is falling in that band. And then above that, possible structural or behavioral remedies. Again, the lower the number, the more likely it is that a consent decree will be filed along with the complaint. After that, 86 to 95, possible litigated challenge, and then 96 to 100, that highest score band, possible adverse decision against the merging parties. So if you look at this list of analyses, right? Some are more enticing than others, but you can see that there are a lot that are low scoring. So, these don't implicate a lot of merger guidelines. And so the analysis, while still very thorough, indicates that they're likely to be cleared. So now let's get to some of the frequently asked questions people have about Taimet. The first one is somebody reviewing these at Taimet? Is someone reviewing these reports? And the answer is, you are the human in the loop of the transactions. Taimet is designed for a sophisticated user. And so really, you need to be the ones checking those markets and making sure that you're comfortable with what it says. And the reason why the markets say what they are is because it is based entirely on public information and proprietary information that the public has access to. There's no inputs, there's no uploads, which means also that Taimet doesn't do things like diversion ratios. So it's not taking away jobs from economists just yet. It is also because of that, not a but-for-world analysis, right? It is a real-world analysis. It takes into account what is actually happening with the transaction. So for example, if you wanted to go back and run the T-Mobile and Sprint transaction, it would not tell you that that was an anti-competitive transaction. It would tell you that it actually happened. Now, one question that I get asked a lot is, can Taimet do vertical transactions? Can it do local markets? Can it do horizontal cluster markets? Can it do SPACs? Can it do other weird transactions like partial acquisitions? And the answer is yeah. The Taimet is really good at analyzing almost all of those transactions, particularly for publicly traded companies. Taimet is less good at analyzing very, very small companies because there's just not the public information about them. But it's an incredible tool. I will never go back to doing these merger reviews by hand after creating this. And so I hope you enjoy it, and please let us know what you think. Thanks so much.